I'm about to introduce you to what I think is some pretty groundbreaking information regarding fibromyalgia, and really fibromyalgia busting information. And that is the simple fact that fibromyalgia is not a muscle disorder. It's a neurologic disorder. It's really a brain disorder. And that doesn't mean it has anything to do with your mental health. It has to do with the activation of your neurologic system. And I'll explain what that means in just one sec. And there's one particular study, probably the definitive study, that came out in November of 2008 that took a group of fibromyalgia sufferers, and they found exactly the same pattern over and over again. I'll talk about what that is in just a moment. So why isn't this information common knowledge? Why isn't it common knowledge that, number one, fibromyalgia is not a muscle problem, and number two, that it does have this brain component to it? The first reason I think that this isn't common knowledge is that it's brand new. Like I said, the definitive study came out in 2008, end of 2008, so just a little over a year old. So it's just brand new, number one. And number two, the reason why this isn't common knowledge is because there's no medicine. There's no medication that effectively changes what they found on those studies. So if you've watched any TV, if you've read any magazines, listened to the radio, you know that advertising moves information, and the corporations that are spending the largest amount of money on advertising in healthcare for sure is the pharmaceutical industry. So if there's no medication to be sold, you're not going to hear about this information, but it is published. It's in the National Library of Medicine. So what is this neurologic problem that I'm talking about? Let me just demonstrate on myself. So what they did was they scanned the brain of a group of people that had fibromyalgia, and they're looking for the activation electrically in different areas of the brain, as well as the blood flow. And so in the back, we have an area of our brain called the cerebellum that coordinates unconsciously, which means we don't have to think about it, all our movement and activity. In the very front of our brain, we have what's called the frontal cortex, which coordinates planning and organization and making things happen, that kind of thing. It's our executive center. Right behind that is the temporal lobe, and that has a lot to do with memory and some other things too. And right behind that is the parietal cortex. And of course, beneath all of that is the emotional centers, and beneath all that is the brain stem. So let me just explain what happened in this study and what they discovered. So number one, they found that the parietal cortex was overactivated. And now what that means to you is your brain, more accurately, your brain has learned pain. So I make the comment sometimes that we could remove your body from the neck down and you would still hurt. You would still have pain because it's learned. It's similar to the phenomenon of a phantom limb, where the limb is actually removed and there is still perceived pain. So that's pain in the parietal cortex, and you have a very high activated, high firing parietal cortex. They found that the frontal cortex was low firing, the temporal lobes were low firing, and the cerebellum was low firing. So if we look at the frontal cortex, now I can't organize, I can't keep focus, my planning is gone. Low firing frontal cortex has a lot to do with depression. Go back into the temporal lobes, that's finding our words, being able to understand what people are saying to us. So it's that fogginess that we get with fibromyalgia. We go into the cerebellum, it's that lack of coordination. We bend over and our back hurts because that unconscious coordination isn't there. We try to pick something up, or just little things hurt us, which should never happen. The other significant point to this neurologic discovery is the top of the brain, the cortex, particularly the frontal cortex, fires down into that brainstem, into an area called the mesencephalon that governs, regulates vital functions. So if we lack firing, I know this is kind of complicated, but if the top of the brain, the frontal cortex, is decreased firing, you get decreased firing into the mesencephalon. And the net output is an increase in the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flee. So your body is kind of going into this fight or flee type of response. It screws up digestion, we get IBS, heart palpitations, anxiety kind of attacks are all regulated through here. Insomnia are things that happen directly when that mesencephalon, that brainstem, is not being inhibited properly by the top of the brain. So how did this all happen? I could say in a word that the big key is stress, but stress is not that easy. Stress can be treated. It can be. We can look at the different aspects of it, and we can treat it and control it and balance it in your body. But we have to look at the different components of stress. Diet is a big component of stress, especially trans fats and sugar. The immune system and inflammation also is another aspect of that. So we got to look at the hormonal system. We have to look at the immune system to make sure that we have all aspects of stress treated. But we do have a fast track. We do have, so obviously that's a big job. We have to look at a lot of things. We have to treat your brain. But just on the plus side, the fast track to that is when we get somebody in our office and accurately diagnosed, and we get them on oxygen, exercising the areas of the brain that need exercising, like the frontal cortex and the cerebellum, to reduce your symptoms as rapidly as possible. I want my patients, I want them to have a nice change as quickly as possible. So we get people going on oxygen and some brain exercises. We check the hormonal system, and we begin to give the hormones that are needed. Most commonly, progesterone, DHEA. These are bioidentical liquid. So the key is to arrive at a proper diagnosis. We need to know on you, how much do we need to do to the temporal lobes, the cerebellum? What is your primary weakness? How has this affected your body specifically? What are your stressors? Is it the immune system? Is it the hormone system? Is it inflammation? Is it your life? Is there anything that we can do to change your lifestyle, change your diet, teach you how to relax a little bit more, help your body and your nervous system adapt to the stresses that you're under? So we have to have all those things in order. We got to know what is specifically affecting you, and then when we apply what you need, we do get pretty rapid results. But again, it's a big problem. A lot has gone wrong. It has never been diagnosed. The studies on what's going on in your system, the neurology behind it, are very recent. So, there's almost no chance that you've been properly diagnosed in the past because the information is that new. The great news, though, once we do get the proper diagnosis, once we understand your brain and your nervous system, once we understand where the stresses are coming from, if we need to treat the immune system or digestive system or whatever it might be, we give people their lives back. People are living pain-free now. People are taking up jobs where they couldn't, get out of bed or, go to work and then have to stay at home for 2 days. Being able to enjoy their lives again. So it's life-changing work that we're doing here in this office. And if you are ready, don't just sit there. Get up and give us a call immediately and talk to Sammy about the process that we need for you to go through to start the diagnostic work. We need some information from you. If you need to get a little more information, if you want to look into the process a little bit more academically, meaning the science behind it, then sign up for the free report, the DVD, and we give a ton of the science behind what we're doing. And we'll get that packet off to you as quickly as possible so that you can start going through all that information and so you can see for yourself how our treatment is so unique, it's so scientific, and it's so successful. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen, and hopefully I'll be meeting you soon. Thank you.